morning, everyone, and welcome to the ICG's Digital Academy webinar series. I'm Sally Alsop, the committee member responsible for running our webinar programme. So this morning, we're delighted to welcome John Ricketts from InfoShelter. John has been working in the market research industry since 1997. In that time, he delivered technical and security support services to research agencies, freelancers, CATI centres and viewing studios. John then left the industry for 3 years to develop his cybersecurity skills further by assisting enterprise and government organisations with security governance, risk and compliance activities. In 2018, he established InfoShelter Limited with the aim of helping market research businesses traverse the cyber threat landscape and meet client and regulatory requirements in information security, privacy, and now AI governance. In this webinar, John is going to take us through some basic security hygiene steps for your devices and cloud services to help minimize risks as custodians of client commercial information and personal participant data. He'll also show you what to look out for from a risk perspective when selecting, suggesting and using cloud services, including AI tools. And he'll share a few examples of common attacks and what to do to help prevent a security breach. As usual, there'll be a Q&A session at the end, so please do then turn on your webcams and raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question and join the discussion, or alternatively, just type in your question in the chat box for me to read out and so that John can answer them. Just as an aside, we're also hoping to run a session on contingency planning in the new year. So if anyone has been directly affected by a cyber attack or hackers and would be happy to share their experiences, please do reach out to Lucy or to me. So we're very grateful to our sponsors Indemo. Indemo is an Instagram-style app for qualitative research that leverages the power of mobile, video and AI to help brands understand people, products, purchases and experience in the context of everyday life. Indemo has supported consumer and shopper insights teams at Danone, General Mills, Coke, Mondelez, P&G, Unilever, Amazon, Google, Verizon and Nike. Indemo's intuitive mobile app makes it simple for participants to share their world through rich, in-the-moment uploads. Participants can record selfie videos, capture photos of products, or even share their screen with voice narration. This means researchers don't just get after-the-fact recollections, they get raw, unfiltered experiences as they happen. The platform also includes built-in transcription, translation, and AI-powered analysis, enabling teams to process and explore dozens of hours of video instantly. This dramatically accelerates qualitative research and unlocks deeper, more authentic insights. So for more information on that, please visit indemo.com. So before we begin, here are some more events we've got lined up for you over the next few weeks. So please take a look at those. And if you're interested in any of our great value sponsorship opportunities, just contact Lucy. She'd be delighted to answer your questions. So I'm now going to hand over to John Ricketts from InfoShelter. Thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Let me just share the right screen. Okay.
You can see the white screen?
Yeah, can you see that?
Yep, that looks good. Over to you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. As Sally said, my name is John Ricketts and I'm the owner of InfoShelter. I'd just like to say thank you very much to the ICG for allowing me to waffle on about security to you all for the next 40 minutes, hopefully, and with hopefully some time for questions at the end. So a very quick bit about us. Our services are designed to help small and medium-sized businesses, particularly in the insights and market research industry, to navigate through the complexities of digital governance, which include information and cybersecurity, privacy, and now AI governance. We can help with procurement activities and prepare for compliance activities with client security requirements. We're also a Cyber Essentials certification body. But today's session, out of these three components of digital governance, we're going to be focusing on information security. We do touch on some aspects of the other two, but the main focus is information security. I'll be touching on a wide variety of things, but given sort of time limitations, I might not be able to go into too much depth. I'd be more than happy to answer questions at the end and catch up with anything specific to you outside of this session. Contact details at the end. Okay, so let's first examine what we should be including in our efforts to secure information. What is valuable to us and our clients? Well, personal data, personally identifiable information. Not only do we have a moral obligation to research participants to look after this information, but we also need to follow UK GDPR. As we know, personal data is everywhere in the insights industry. It's contained in our fieldwork and recruitment lists, our fieldwork recordings, and any sort of often in pre-task files and material ahead of research. It could contain photos, etc. But also, you know, the big one is client sample files, which is huge, often huge extracts of our clients' CRMs. So we need to look after it. The other type of information is commercially sensitive information, project information. You know, clients will want to maintain the confidentiality of information they share with us about their products and services. And then finally, you know, your own information, which we often store on the same device as our work information. This information, so like, you know, things like, you know, bank information, like loans, mortgage, passport scans, you know, tax documents, etc., can all be used by attackers in fraudulent activities against us and our families. So we need to, you know, look after that as well. So why bother with information security? Is what is the big fuss about? You know, the threat is real. We have seen multiple instances of breaches and compromises, and you know, this is you know, something that is prevalent throughout the UK and obviously and of course globally. But in the UK, there's 43% of businesses have reported a security breach. According to the 2025 DCIT Cybersecurity Breach Survey, which is down from 50% in the previous year. The National Cybersecurity Centre continues to warn that supplier compromise is a key vector. So, you know, I guess so by supply compromise, what we're looking at are weak links in the supply chain where security isn't adhered to, which basically, you know, is an opening for you know, the compromise of information. So why bother? Well, clients are looking at the supply chain as a result of this. Yeah, agencies. Your clients may be agencies. They may be enterprise organisations. Yeah, agencies have contractual obligations placed on them to look down their supply chain. So good security may be a barrier to working with certain agencies. And then the end clients, the enterprise companies, are concerned about the supply chain attacks and look to hold suppliers all throughout the supply chain contractually accountable for any breaches. So enterprise companies are concerned, really, I mean, yeah, about you know, information loss, data leakage, but you know, obviously the bad publicity that surrounds accidents occurring down the supply chain. Attackers are another vector in this as well, you know, and they see suppliers as a way in, either on a targeted effort or opportunistic. Yeah. SMEs are often targeted as a route in because you know, often they won't have the budgets and resources to implement good security, which hopefully after today's session you'll be able to add onto your existing security procedures with a little bit more. Okay, so attacks can often be opportunistic with an unintended pivot if valuable. if a valuable target is discovered. And we'll go into that scenario in a minute. But typically, attacks are through what we see as phishing emails, which is still the #1 threat. Okay. According to the same cyber breaches survey, phishing remains the most common type of cyber attack, affecting 85% of businesses that reported breaches in 2024. So phishing attacks on UK businesses increased by 2% from 2024 to 2025, with criminals using increasingly sophisticated tactics like AI to make the material, the mechanisms a bit more believable. Okay. And human error, such as clicking on malicious links, is the most significant factor, with up to 88% of cyber security breaches falling foul of that. So what's a phishing email? So there's a typical phishing email looks like this, and we've all received these. Many are non-targeted and sent on a spray and pray basis, and AI is making these things more difficult to spot. But there are things that you can, do to spot phishing emails. For example, making sure that the domain name from email address is legitimate. There's no, obvious typos in it. For masquerading against an actual domain name, and making sure that the sender and company are not from the same from the display name. So look out for the from address. That's probably the easiest way to spot a phishing email. For example, if it's from Microsoft.com, they may replace an I with a 1, for example, or or an I for an L or 1 in the domain name. So it's worth just paying attention. If you're not expecting something, if something looks a bit fishy, then that's the first place to look. But then there are also obvious other areas that you need to sort of look at, vaguely worded or bad grammar and spelling in the body of the content, which actually is improving now with AI, and unusual URLs. If you hover over the URL, you can see that potentially it's a completely different domain that it's pointing to, indicating again malicious intent. So there's some easy ways to spot phishing email, but if you're receiving lots of them, and time is of sometimes it's easy just to open things and just automatically click on them. The best thing to do is just reduce the amount of phishing emails that are coming into your inbox. If you are receiving a lot of them, look at your phishing filter. And typically, depending on what you're using, if it's Office 365, for example, this can be dialed up to increase the focus of the filter and capture more more email. So it's worth playing around with that if you're receiving lots and lots of phishing emails. But I just wanted to go over this particularly nasty type of phishing and a nasty threat that we're seeing more of in the wild, and that's from compromised mailbox phishing. Okay, and what it does, it starts with you receive an email from a known contact's real account because their mailbox was already hacked. Okay, and it looks safe since the sender is familiar. Okay. But that message contains a malicious link or attachment. So, you might click that and it takes you to a fake login page, or it could download malware. Okay. Session hijacking could begin at that point. If you enter your credentials, and attackers can capture them instantly. But they may also steal what's called a session code, which is essentially a ticket that keeps you logged on in your browser. So they don't even need your password to get in or again. So that's basically how an attacker would compromise a mailbox. And at that point, they will have access to that full mailbox. And keep in mind that if they've got access to your mailbox, for example, if it's Office 365, then there's a good chance they're going to have access to OneDrive. And if you are, an admin on Office 365, for example, they'll have access to the admin portal as well, the whole tenant. Okay. Okay, so with your, now once the attacker has gained a foothold in your mailbox, they can read, send, and delete emails as if they were you. Okay, they can also get a feel of what business you are and what information you have. So the idea is that they would sit resident in your account and just observe and read what type of emails you're sending, what type of business you are, what type of information you have. They would then potentially create mailbox rules. Yeah, this is often the first thing the attacker would do once they gain a foothold. These mailbox rules would be used to hide sent items, hiding replies from any IT department you have, or security contact, or alerts from antivirus or Office 365 that you set up to alert against indicators of compromise. But they'll also, they might also move these warning emails to deleted items. Basically, what they're doing is hiding their activities within your mailbox by setting these rules to automatically move these emails to places where you wouldn't look. Okay. They may, if they've got access to your, your tenant, your OneDrive, place a malicious file on your, in a folder. And that would be, used to be shared with, with contacts that they would, send further malicious emails to. Okay, so the attacker then uses your identity to send phishing emails with these links to the files or fake credential sites to your colleagues, suppliers, or customers. Because the emails come from you, recipients, again, like potentially you were, are more likely to trust and click, and that's how the rinse and repeat cycle progresses. So this is a particularly nasty one. It's very difficult to spot, and once you are compromised, there are some things that you need to do to kick them out, essentially, but also to notify people. I'll go on to that in a minute. But essentially what this attack is doing is, once a mailbox is compromised, the attacker doesn't just steal the data, okay, which they do, yeah, but they also use it to spread further, hide their tracks, and then stay inside your systems for as long as they can. And that's the premise of this attack. So how would we handle it? Okay, on first receipt of the email, without clicking anything, if you received an email from a known contact, for example, question it. Question unexpected emails with links to websites or files, even if they're from a known contact. If there's any doubt, if this is an unannounced email, if you're not expecting it, if it's completely out of the blue, question it. And if in any doubt, don't open or click anything. Potentially what you can do is confirming their legitimacy with, using a different communication channel. So if it's someone perhaps giving them a call, asking them, did you actually send this email? It could be that this is news to them, and this is, you're helping them identify a compromise. But we're all fallible, and if you are, sometimes we click on things automatically, particularly if it looks like it's from someone we trust. If you suspect you've clicked on something, there are things that to check, right? So you double check your mailbox for any unexpected email in sent items, or if it's moved to deleted items. Yeah, anything else in deleted items, take a look there. And also a good indicator is just to check within your mail client whether or not mailbox rules have been created, because that is a typical first step that an attacker would make, as I've just explained. But then also within your tenant, if you know how to do this, you could see whether or not delegate access has been granted unexpectedly on your mailbox to anyone else within your organization. So that's another indicator of compromise. Then, if it looks like, okay, yeah, you have been compromised. Someone is in your tenant. They're sending files. They're doing horrible things within your tenant. There's some things that you need to do pretty quickly. Okay, so the first thing really is reset your password and your multi-factor authentication, and then at the same time, or just after doing that, sign out of all Microsoft or Google account everywhere. So revoke active sessions. So basically you're stopping all active sessions into your account, and then that attacker hopefully won't be able to log in again, because you would have changed your password and reset your MFA. Then after that, you want to make sure that you advise all those you have who've potentially received a malicious email from your mailbox, that there has been a compromise, and you're working towards fixing it. But don't click on any links from anything sent by you within the period you suspect you've been compromised for. There are some other things to do, in terms of checking for logs and uninstalling third-party add-ins, but it might be that you need to call specialists to come in and give you a hand to help with these things. Specialists like us. So yeah, give us a shout if anything like that happens. But recovering a compromised mailbox isn't just about changing the password. Okay, it's not just the first couple of steps. You have to kick the attacker out and close the back doors, and you have to warn others, okay, before they spread further, because it's the whole kind of rinse and repeat cycle that the attacker is depending on, until they get to a mailbox where there's really sensitive information, and then the attack goes up towards more valuable targets. Okay, so following on from the previous slide, I just wanted to talk about backups. If you're in a position whereby potentially as a result of a compromised account, you've been locked out of your files on your computer or cloud storage, or you've been locked out of your Office 365 or Google account, you'll more than likely need to rely on restoring files from a second location, like another cloud or a local sort of hard disk or network attack storage box and NAS box. Don't underestimate the importance of this, because ransomware and account lockout are key strategies for extortion attacks and are often synonymous with the type of attack that I've just explained before. It's quick and easy for an attacker to, and unfortunately often successful if backups aren't in place to, encrypt files and extort. So don't make it easy for them, and don't let them win. Always have a second location for backups that you can call upon, and that's your best protection against ransomware. Another way to prevent against a attack, if you've fallen foul of a credential leak, so you've entered your username and password into a fake credential site accidentally, and then an attacker has compromised your account that way, is to strengthen your logins by using passkeys. Okay, passkeys are becoming many services' preferred authentication method. They're safer and easier. They're a safer and easier replacement for passwords. And instead of you trying to remember a password, your device, like your phone or laptop, creates a unique digital key. Okay, so when you log in, the website asks your device to prove it's really you. Your device unlocks the passkey using something only you can provide, like your fingerprint, face, or a PIN. So basically, the beauty of this, the website never sees your fingerprint or PIN, just the proof that you are who you say you are. So this means that there's nothing for hackers to steal if there's a compromise in, in the service you're trying to log into, like the website. There's no passwords to leak, and there's nothing really. If you use biometrics, there's nothing for you to remember. So there's no, forgot password hassle or password reuse. Weaknesses around password management. So login is essentially quicker and safer. So it's worth considering passkeys. And what does it look like? Well, a website offers passkeys here as an authentication method, sometimes through a QR code, sometimes through an email address that you enter in, whilst going through a passkey authentication mechanism, and a prompt appears on your device to provide further, often biometric authentication, and then you're in. Okay, so it's very, very easy. Passkeys, in certain circumstances, are much stronger than passwords. Okay, but they are still reliant on protecting your devices and your cloud accounts, the places where you're storing these passkeys. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you're saving passkeys on devices or on a password management solution, that these are properly sort of nailed down with security to help protect those. Okay. So just to go over some other threats, mobile device threats. So we typically store lots of valuable information on our phones, and as such, they're a target both typically for short-term device resale and for access to information within, for use within fraudulent phishing campaigns. So, make sure you have a way to quickly remote wipe your phone, just in case this happens. Always make sure you use biometrics to authenticate when out and about. So if you're on a train and you're looking at your phone, try to avoid using the PIN to get into your phone, because you never know who's behind you, watching over your shoulder to see what you're typing in. Yeah, always stick to biometrics when you're out and about. Okay, and then lock the phone when it's not in use. Okay. So other things can happen. Obviously, accidental loss. If you leave it on a bus or in a cafe or something, that's you've still got information in there that it's very timely to wipe. But then there's also some other type threats, on mobile devices. For example, there's been an increase in WhatsApp account takeover. Whereby this includes like requests for activation codes to get into your account. These requests often pretending to be from people so it's WhatsApp, especially for insights, the insights industry. We sometimes use WhatsApp for capturing pre-task material from our participants. So not only do we have all of the personal information in WhatsApp to protect belonging to us, but also on occasion we have participant information as well. So make sure that with WhatsApp you've got multi-factor authentication in place, and if you are subject to an account takeover, well, actually never give your account lockout code to anyone. No one ever needs it. But if this does ever happen, give us a shout and we can help with seeing you through that particularly nasty scenario. Okay. Less likely is spyware, malware that can happen on your phone. If you see your phone's got sluggish performance, it's overheating, or the camera light is on unexpectedly, then indicators of spyware, malware. But these instances are far few and far between. Connecting to fake Wi-Fi's, is also can also cause network intrusion and network packet sniffing, so that can intercept whatever is being transmitted from your phone. So be careful with fake Wi-Fi's. I'll go on to that a little bit in a minute. And with NFC attacks, rogue NFC readers can be used to trigger unauthorized payments. Yeah, you use NFC on your wallets, on your your digital wallets to pay for things wirelessly, and this is something that can happen. So always set biometric authentication for payments to prevent these automated attacks. But let's focus on theft and loss. There's a couple of things to do in both Apple and Android to help protect against information being accessed should your phone get taken from your hand on the street, or you accidentally leave it and somewhere unlocked, and someone picks it up and has a good old route around your phone. Look at app protection, which is something that's on both Apple and Android now. And you basically hold down, the app that you want to protect, typically apps containing information, and select require Face ID. And it's a really good way of thwarting, additional information being captured by an attacker who's got your phone. So make sure that is set on any app that contains information. It's a very quick and easy thing to do. The other thing to do is enable stolen device protection, which offers kind of heuristic kind of checking mechanisms to help further protect your information and your phone should your device be stolen. So for example, on Apple, it introduces extra identity checks for things like changing Apple ID password, disabling Find My Phone, and turning off Face ID, etc. It requires Face ID or Touch ID to change those things, which is typical attacker behavior. They'll want to change your credentials so they can keep logging into your phone. There's also a security delay there for the most sensitive changes. There's like a 1 hour waiting period, plus another Face ID or Touch ID check. So that gives you enough time to get to a computer and remote wipe using whatever platform you're using. Okay, so there's a few, it's worth just checking that, and that's how you do that. And in Android, there's different flavors of Android. So setting app protection looks differently for different phones, and I've just listed those here. But with Android, they've got a few other protective mechanisms reliant on behavior-driven features. So, for example, there's a factory reset protection feature which prevents thieves from resetting your phone to factory settings and using it without your Google account credentials. There's also a theft detection lock, which is a newly introduced AI-powered technology that detects theft-like motion, such as people grabbing your phone and running off, and locks the screen instantly. So I've never tested that, but apparently it's there. When you're out and about, some things to look out for. Be aware of your surroundings. If possible, sit with your back to a wall. Trains are not great places to work on client files unless you've got a really good privacy screen. So be careful of shoulder surfing, and be careful of with phone calls out and about. Be mindful of mentioning what others can hear when making be mindful of what you're talking about when you're in the earshot of other people when making work calls outside of the office. Potentially avoid using client names, product names, etc. if you're in a public space. Public Wi-Fi, as I mentioned before, it's a particularly tricky one. There are risks around using public Wi-Fi. We've no control on the provider's preventative and protective measures, so we don't know what encryption really they're using. It's varying, right? And we don't know what other protective measures they've got in place. So we're kind of at the mercy of potentially, a provider that's just stood something up in a rush. But more importantly, they're easily replicated. Public Wi-Fi networks are easily replicated and can be cloned by attackers, so allowing for information to be captured in transmission. So as you can see here, an attacker stands up a wireless network with exactly the same name as a legitimate Wi-Fi network. You connect to the attacker's network, and then all of a sudden they can capture all of your network traffic, potentially including your authentication information into various things. So it's worth avoiding, really. I mean, I try to avoid public Wi-Fi where possible and just relying on hotspotting from my phone. To be honest with you, like 4 or 5G is often quicker anyway. So yeah, perhaps use that when if you're out in the office, if you're out of the office. Also, if you're going to be hotspotting from your phone, make sure that you're mindful of shoulder surfing when you're entering the password. If you're entering it in for the first time on your device, on your laptop, make sure no one's actually looking at the phone while you're doing that as it's displaying that password, because then they'll have access as well. And at home, obviously, the majority of us work from home most of the time now. So being careful to, secure your home's perimeter, be careful with printouts. If you are going to use printouts, maybe lock them away at night. Definitely make sure that, they're disposed of securely, shredding, etc. If you're if you're working at a desk, potentially, as they do in many offices, adopt a clean desk policy, so you're not leaving any paper on your desk, just in case something happens at night, and it's easy to, someone can access that information, and all of a sudden you have to answer to, whoever's information it is you're looking after. Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, securing the perimeter, keep your front back doors locked if possible, and windows closed when you aren't there. But that's obvious. Everyone does that. Making sure your screen isn't facing a window as well. So if you're, on the ground floor and there's there's people walking past, make sure they can't see your screen, because photos can be taken, etc. This is all me being very paranoid and a security consultant, but these things happen. Okay. And also be careful of friendly and unauthorized access. So if you're flat sharing, or if you have contractors in, cleaners, whatever, make sure that your files, laptops, screens are out of sight of these people as well. Finally, shut down your computer completely at the end of the day. If you do this, then there's a couple of things that you'll be protected from. One is you'll be hopefully applying all security updates as you shut down. But the other is when you completely shut down, and if you've encrypted your laptop, then it's difficult for the information to be accessed by an attacker if they boot it up from cold. If it's just in sleep mode and they open it, then that can bypass, your encryption can be bypassed. So just be mindful of that. Okay, I just now want to quickly focus on another reason we need to be careful, and that's contractual requirements. So as we know, security requirements often exist in contracts, perhaps in security addendums at the end of contracts with our clients. Okay, and that could be with agencies, could be with end clients. I'm sure you've all seen them. Often there's a combination of technical and procedural requirements. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because we haven't really got time. But just to remind everyone that once you sign these agreements, that it's worth reading what you're on the hook for, because if you've signed an agreement, then you are obliged to adhere to that requirement. Okay. Now, I want to also now talk about, it's worth mentioning, regarding common requirements, that Cyber Essentials will help meet the majority of your technical security requirements. Yeah, it's worth looking at Cyber Essentials certification for a number of reasons. It's very straightforward, and it's an affordable way to protect against 80% of cyber threats. But it also gives assurance to your clients that you're doing the right thing, and will often help with procurement activities, particularly on government rosters where it's a requirement. So yeah, there's lots of benefits for Cyber Essentials, particularly for micro businesses. As I said, it is affordable. Given the level of service that you want to pay for, you can either just do like a straight assessment for 320, I think, on the ISME website, or if you want a guided service from a company like us, and we're also a certification body, that'd be about 450. So it's worth it's worth considering. Just wanted to quickly finish giving a few top tips around some of the other sort of elements of contractual requirements. First of all, with computer security, please, it's worth making sure that you're updating your software frequently, weekly, if possible. Don't forget, when we say updating software, we don't just talk about updating your operating system, but things like Adobe, Java, your web browsers, things like WinZip, they all carry vulnerabilities as well. So you need to make sure that they are updated as well. So potentially look at setting auto updates as far as possible, or using an external service to do this for you. There's a few around, and I'm happy to talk about that as well. As I mentioned, shut down your computer at least once per week to apply these updates. And a big one coming up now on October the 14th, Windows 10 will not be supported. That means by Microsoft, which means you won't receive security updates for Windows 10 after October the 14th. So it's a good idea if you're on Windows 10 to update to a Windows 11 operating system by that time. The other thing to do is to encrypt your laptop. As I mentioned, if you are encrypting your laptop and it's stolen or or lost, then access to files will be nigh on impossible. So it's definitely worth doing. Enable File Vault in Mac OS. Enable BitLocker in Windows. Okay. To enable BitLocker in Windows, you need the Pro version of Windows 11, not the home version. It doesn't really work in the home version. And the other thing is, and one of the key things to do to protect your computer sessions is not to operate as an admin. Yeah. Admins have the master keys for everything. You can install software, you can change security settings, control the whole machine. If you use the computer as an administrator all the time, anything you click, even by mistake, all gets master key access. So that means like malware or a bad attachment can instantly install itself. Consider using a non-admin or a standard user account for your daily work. You can still open apps, browse, write emails, and use things like Office and Teams and Zoom. But if you really need to install something, the computer will ask you for an admin password first. And then that speed bump stops most malware in its tracks. So yeah, if you need, again, if you need a hand setting this up, if you're not already doing this, I would, be more than happy to help. It's very important. It's a huge risk reduction strategy. In terms of cloud and AI security, before you upload your information, it's worth assessing the cloud tool for risk. Yeah, if you're going to be spinning up a new cloud service, if you're going to start uploading information, first of all, read the terms of use, security pages, and the trust centers. If there are none of these things, then it should raise alarm bells. The idea is for cloud tools to be transparent about security, and often they are. But if in the absence, then question whether or not it's actually taking security seriously. Obviously, authentication is a key thing as well. So multi-factor authentication, passkey, are they options? If they are, set them, even if they're behind a paywall. It's really important because it's very easy to break into cloud services just with a username and password, especially if that password's been reused on other things and other things have been captured. So make sure MFA is in place. You can check for encryption at rest in transit if personal data is being uploaded. And obviously, if personal data is being uploaded, look for the location of where where that cloud service is hosting that data. If it's in the US, look for data protection framework compliance. It's a new legislative mechanism that enables compliant US companies to receive EU, UK information, personal information. So it was kind of the same as Privacy Shield, but this is a step up from Privacy Shield. If a cloud service is mentioning Privacy Shield, then maybe take question, because it looks like they haven't sort of updated or they're not keeping on top of their privacy requirements. So Assess AI tools for risk as well. So look to see whether or not any data that you're uploading is training LLMs that are accessible elsewhere. Is the data you're uploading to that AI service going to be spat out in a response to a query from another user of that service? Okay, so where possible, always look at ring fencing your own, your environment, depending on the types of information you're uploading. If it's something we want to protect, going back to slide 4 or 5 or whatever, one of those 3 types of information: personal, commercially sensitive, or our own personal. Make sure that we're ring fencing that so only we have access, and there's often an option to do that. But also, if you're uploading things, like personal data, for example, if you're using a cloud tool with AI integrations for personal data, consider how long they're retaining your data, and is there a way to delete it? What happens when you delete your account? Is this information all of continuously then in a provider's LLM, continuously training that model, or is there a way of actually deleting that information? So it's worth looking at AI tools. They should all be adhering to the EU AI Act and guidance for transparency. So they the good ones will have this level of information, and if not, then often you can obtain that information by probing a little bit from the privacy email address. So yeah. And also another thing that is sort of taking wings at the moment is agentic AI, where you have automation in AI doing things for you on your behalf. But with that, there's a requirement for the AI agent to access information, for context to perform that function, right? So examine what information that AI agent is accessing. Yeah, is it accessing everything, or is it a subset of information? Understanding what is is being accessed is paramount when you're considering using agentic AI. Also look at the MRS standards guidance on using AI and related technologies for market research. It's a really good resource, and it's on the MRS website. When you're using the cloud tools, there's some golden rules. So make sure, obviously, MFA passkeys are in use to protect on the perimeter. Account management as well. Make sure that you're removing old users and and you're avoiding using shared accounts as well. Have named accounts for everyone who's using that where possible, just to help with non-repudiation if something happens. Okay. So yeah, account management is pretty key. You don't want people, being able to access your information in a cloud tool after they've left your organization, or they don't need to access it anymore. Also, when you're sharing, within cloud tools, make sure, and if there's an option for producing a link to share a file or an area, make sure that link isn't open, i.e. whoever accessed that link can access that file. If there's an option, always try to restrict the link to specific people and time it and put a timer on it as well. Okay, final slide now. Around data handling, more sort of procedural. Look out for client instructions around the way they want you to handle their personal data and or commercially sensitive information. If they're impressing that you encrypt, if there's certain ways that they want you to share, or if they're suggesting certain retention periods and deletion mechanisms, just know what they are. Hopefully that they'd be delivered in the same sort of contract at the end in some sort of handling model. If not, but in the absence, there are some things that we need to make sure we do, like encrypt personal data always. Consider when you're encrypting personal data, you can password protect in Office if it's a spreadsheet. That's by default strong encryption, AES 256-bit. But when you're putting a password in, make sure it's not password 1234 and that same password is used everywhere else. Consider generating strong passwords from a password manager. And there are many password managers around where you can store all of your passwords, both at a file level and at a cloud level if you're using passwords and not passkeys. And actually, you can store passkeys in password managers now as well, which is quite a cool thing. So consider investing in a password manager. There's a few good ones that I'm happy to share, outside of this session. But when you're sharing passwords with someone external, always share via a different channel. So if you're emailing a file that's password protected, consider maybe texting the password, or if it's like a password that's easy to recite over the phone, maybe call the person with that password. And retention, always follow client instructions for deletion times. Make sure you know how you're going to be deleting things and when, and keep track of where your data is, because it could be that to help make sure you're getting everything in your retention activity. You want to make sure that you know where everything is, basically. So if you're using cloud tools, keep a track of where you're uploading personal data that needs to be deleted. And finally, please, as these requirements have been passed down to you as a supplier, if you're using freelancers, subcontractors, you need to do the same. So this supply chain, so you need to trickle down these requirements to the people you're working with. You probably be contractually obliged to do this as well, because the idea is that the supply chain is protected all the way down to the bottom. So if you're using people, if they're using people, just make sure that these requirements are passed down that chain. Okay, that's it. Apologies for everything being a bit rushed. I'm happy to go into a bit more detail outside of this session on any of this stuff, but for now I'm open to questions.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, John. Really useful tips there. We've got a few questions in the chat. Maria, I don't know if Maria, if you want to turn on your webcam and ask that question yourself, or if you would like me to read it out for you. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was I was too slow. Yeah, so basically, you mentioned, thank you, John, for this very amazing and informative talk. Now I'm wondering, biometrics always seem to fail on my devices. So, so I was wondering if you think that a password manager is a viable alternative, and whether you could recommend any password managers that you, are happy with.
Yeah, password managers. So when you're looking at password managers, I tend to go for the ones where the password manager provider doesn't have the full private key or encryption, right? So you have a bit of the encryption and they have a bit of the encryption, because as we saw with a certain password manager provider that I'm not going to name, they were compromised and lots of their customers' vaults were at jeopardy, okay, because they had the keys to all of the kingdom. So the password providers that I use, you would have your own secret key, and then they would have a secret key as well. So if they get compromised, then you've still got part of the key, and they can't, your password vault is safe, right? But what that means is, though, if you lose your secret key, then you kind of lost access to your mailbox, right? So you have to be really careful and have something that you remember. But there are some ones I like 1Password. That is probably my go-to. Just the number one and then password. There's commercial sort of reasons why you might want to go down that route for a huge big organization, but for micro organizations, it's actually probably the best one, I think. If there is a slightly more cost-effective one, but a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit more clunky to use from a file password perspective, and that is RoboForm. That's another one. It's a bit cheaper, but again, you've got both of those. You've got part of the key, and then the provider's got part of the key, so that offers really good protection. And yeah, I mean, passkeys, using passkeys, as I said, passkeys can be stored in these password managers, and there's actually a lot of people are doing that instead of using biometrics. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely worth doing.
Thank you.
Okay, So what's next? Which LLM are best at ring fencing information you put into them? Are there any you would recommend avoiding? That's from Robert. I don't know if Robert, you want to come on and probe that?
Right, Bob.
Am I on? I can't see myself, so I'm guessing my camera's gone on.
We can see you.
Oh, hello. How disconcerting. I can't see myself. Yeah, no, just probably a very common question, which, because we're all using LLMs, there's a lot out there. Are there any, from your point of view, that are better or worse at ring fencing information so it doesn't start appearing places you don't want it to appear?
If we're talking about generative AI, things, I mean, it depends what you want to use it for, but I mean, ChatGPT, there is a ring fencing, mechanism to that, but you do have to pay for the license to make that a possibility. And even after you pay for the license, it isn't on by default, so you need to switch it on. So you need to be mindful of that. But in terms of ring fencing, it's difficult to you place quite a lot of trust in these AI providers to do an effective job at ring fencing. So you've got to take them at face value on that respect. So if they say they're going to do ring fencing, it's up to you to whether or not you trust them on that. But ChatGPT will ring fence your information if you purchase a certain license and enable that as an option.
I've got one more question while I'm here. I have a Mac, and I've got a Mac because I feel it's more secure than a PC.
Yeah.
What degree is that actually true, or is it just a false sense of security?
Yeah, Macs are there's still vulnerabilities on Macs. There's still malware for Macs. Okay, Macs are fantastically well built and well built machines, well designed operating systems, but you still need to do some stuff to protect them against common threats. So you can't. It's not advisable to operate a Mac outside of the the recommendations that I'm making around sort of working as a non-administrative profile, switching the firewall on, encrypting using FileVault, and installing antivirus software, anti-malware software. There's malware for Macs, but they are good though.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, I think we've covered the question about password managers. So I think that's all the questions in the chat. Is there anybody else who wants to turn on the webcam, ask a question? We've got another couple of minutes left. John, perhaps you could stop sharing your slides so we can see
yeah, sure.
everybody. If anybody else wants to raise their hand, we'll ask a question. Any more questions from anyone? No? Okay, well, just thank you very much indeed, John. That was a really interesting and I think useful discussion. I think it's, Sue, yes. You're on mute, Sue. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, thanks very much. I was struggling there to get my camera on, but it's on. Thank you very much, John, for a very, very useful talk for all of us. And you may or may not have seen, I've just put something in the chat earlier on about being hacked a few years ago. And just one point I want to make really about that. You're all welcome to contact me about it separately or later, because there's quite a lot of information that's probably useful for all of you in terms of my experiences. But one thing that really comes to mind more than anything is that when I was hacked, I expected that my internet provider would be very cooperative and very supportive and helpful, and actually they weren't. So that really was quite a shock to the system. And I got more support actually from an organization called Action Fraud than the internet provider. Yeah, and as a result of the hack and the lack of support from my internet provider, I actually changed providers.
Yeah, I wouldn't, the ISP wouldn't be the first place I'd go for support in a hack. particularly if it was like, I don't know the details of what happened to you. I haven't sort of read about it yet, but I will. But if it's something on your computer, their demarcation point is they stand up your internet line, and they'll give you a router with some firewall capabilities.
I didn't even get that actually.
Right.
Initially. I wasn't just looking for support, I was looking for advice, about how do I handle this, what do I do? And it took me a long time to actually get through to the relevant department, which turned out to be outside the UK.
Yeah.
It was just, as I said in the chat, nightmarish.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think action against fraud is a good first stop. I think look at us now. You can come and see us.
Yes.
Also, there's other resources as well. The National Cybersecurity Centre have a lot of good resources, so that's worth a look. IASME as well have an incident response service. IASME are the accreditors for Cyber Essentials, so they could put you in touch with also some additional advice from some of the certification bodies like us, to offer some advice. And you don't need to look at spending a gazillion pounds to receive this information. Everyone's good natured in our industry. If there's an issue, we'll tend to help and jump on it.
Thank you. I mean, I'd certainly advise all colleagues to be prepared for attacks, because when it happens wham like that, and it's really, really difficult to try and deal with it. Took me nearly 72 hours to sort everything out.
Yeah. I mean, it's time is of the essence as well, right?
Yeah.
For a few reasons. Obviously, you want to make sure that if someone's got a foothold in your organization or on your computer and your tenant, that you want them out as soon as possible before they can do more damage. But then also, you have got, personal data is involved, the time starts ticking there as well,
and client data as well, obviously. So
you'll be contracted. Often there's a 48 hour contractual obligation for you to notify your clients of breaches as well. And actually, that's probably another good source as well. If you're depending on who you're working for, if they can see, if you notify your client that this has happened, they would often as well, offer some resource as well. It's probably a good chance they probably would.
Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you very much for volunteering to share that information with you. As I say, we're planning a session in the new year on contingency planning, not just for cyber attacks, but for health issues, for example, as well. If you suddenly find that you can't carry on your normal day activities because of a crisis of one sort or another. So we do want to include cyber security issues within that as well. So we will definitely be reaching out to you to have a chat with you.
Thank you. It certainly adversely affected my mental health at the time, I can assure you.
It did. Yeah, it's awful, isn't it? I know.
Okay, I think we're out of time now. So thanks again, John, for sharing all this knowledge and information with us. It's been very, very helpful, very useful. Thanks to everybody for joining today. Do join us again for one of our future webinars on knowledge shares going forwards. And otherwise, have a fantastic afternoon, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.